as always, please retry this question before watching the video. There are several things you need to know to be able to answer this question. If you don't know the answer to any of them, please add it to your cheat sheet, master it, and go back 5 before continuing in the video to the next question. What is the WTD for clause questions? Consider the 3 things for each answer individually. What are the 3 things? Punctuation in the middle of a clause, no independent clause in the sentence, and clauses separated improperly. What are our 3 main sentence structures? Independent plus independent, independent plus dependent, dependent plus independent. How do we punctuate independent plus independent? The 5 ways. What are the 5 ways? Comma fanboys, period, semicolon, M dash, colon. Comma fanboys, period, semicolon, M dash, colon. How do we punctuate independent plus dependent or dependent plus independent? Comma always. What is the easiest way to determine we have a dependent clause? And that is that it starts with a dependent clause marker. A dependent clause marker. What is the easiest way to determine we have an independent clause? And that is that it does not start with a dependent clause marker. Remember, we're retraining our brains away from asking ourselves, can it stand alone as a sentence, and towards just looking at the first word to see if it's a dependent clause marker. And what are our 10 magic dependent clause markers? What are our 10 magic dependent clause markers? And that is because, while, when, since, whereas, who, whom, whose, which, that. Because, while, when, since, whereas, who, whom, whose, which, that. With those in mind, let's go ahead and take a look at number 8. So we know that this is a clause question because the punctuation is changing from answer to answer. So we're going to consider the 3 things for each answer individually. Answer F. Is there punctuation in the middle of a clause? To straddle felt unnatural to Fosbury. That's a clause. He decided to try the less common scissor kick technique. That's another clause. So that punctuation there is between the 2 clauses. It's not in the middle of one of them. So there's not punctuation in the middle of a clause. Is there an independent clause in the sentence? Let's look at the first one. To see if you can determine the sentence structure. Pause the video, see if you can determine the sentence structure. The sentence structure is independent plus independent. The straddle felt, that's a subject-verb combo. It is not a dependent clause. The is not a dependent clause marker. He decided, that is not, he is not a dependent clause marker. So therefore, both of these are independent clauses. Therefore, we need to separate it with one of the 5 ways. And they did separate it with one of the 5 ways on answer F with a semicolon. And so there are 2 independent clauses, so there's definitely at least one. So there's nothing that we can find wrong with answer F. Okay, it doesn't mean it's the right answer, but it does mean that we can't eliminate. Remember, we're training our brains to eliminate wrong answers instead of looking for right answers. Answer G. Is there punctuation in the middle of a clause? No. Is there an independent clause in the sentence? Yes, there are still 2 independent clauses in the sentence. Are the clauses separated properly? All right, so we determined the sentence structure on the last one was independent. This one is also independent. And they did not use one of the 5 ways. They just used so, but they did not use a comma, fanboys. Therefore, that is not going to be our correct answer. Therefore, we can go ahead and eliminate that answer. All right. So next we have answer H. And answer H, there's not punctuation in the middle of a clause. There are 2 independent clauses in the sentence, and the sentence structure is still independent, and they did not use one of the 5 ways. So we can eliminate H because the clauses are separated improperly, and the exact same thing is wrong with J. Also, as soon as you find one thing that's wrong with one of the answers, almost certainly the same thing is going to be wrong with the other answers. So you can move through these much faster after you find one to just consider that one thing for each of the other answers. And this verifies our answer F is correct. If this made sense to you, please add it to your worksheet, write what you learned along with the answer, and then continue on to do the remaining clause 3 questions that you missed on this test. If this is the final clause 3 question that you missed on this test, please go ahead and do the Clause 3 mastery until you get 10 questions correct in a row on the mastery sheet.